Hi, and thank you for coming to this presentation on using Forge to make BIM 360 your own. I'm Daniel Clayson, a senior technical consultant at Autodesk, and my role is to help companies make the most of BIM 360 by using web technologies to solve their specific problems. I have a background in architecture and a love of solving problems using code, of making existing tools more effective than they would be on their own. Now let's start by talking about BIM 360. This is our cloud solution for the AEC industry, and an excellent tool for document management, coordination between disciplines, tracking issues from design phase through to construction, and quite a bit more. It's also a reasonably flexible platform, but it still is opinionated, as we know many of the workflows that are provided are what we've seen works for the majority of customers, and most of those probably work for you too. But everyone has different needs, and our base product isn't going to solve all of those. Which is why we have Forge. Forge is the building blocks behind BIM 360. It's the set of APIs that Autodesk uses to handle users and manage documents, to change files, automate tasks, and everything else that a user does in BIM 360. These APIs are made accessible to our customers to help you develop the solutions you need on top of the massive data that you've already put into BIM 360. In this presentation, I'm going to run through several ways that Autodesk Consulting and our partners have helped customers turn BIM 360 into their own bespoke solution through the Forge platform. I'll introduce a number of different problems and then share how Forge was used to solve them. This will be both a quick introduction to the problems Forge can solve, and it will also be a lightweight technical presentation detailing how the building blocks of Forge can be reassembled to create new solutions. Our first topic is project startup. Every company has a slightly different way to get started with new projects. Sometimes you give a person a call and you tell them the details of the project name, the number, the users, the subcontractors, etc., all over the phone. Sometimes you go fill out a form, or you send someone an email. And in many cases, those requests are going to end up in somebody's inbox, and then they will open up the BIM 360 UI, type that information in, and create the project. And for every extra person we add into this process, we're introducing opportunities for typos and miscommunication. Which is why we've helped companies automate this process and make it less error-prone. Let's look at the steps involved. First, we use BIM 360's authentication system to determine who should be able to start a project. Maybe you want all of your project admins to be able to create new projects. You could also use forms on SharePoint or somewhere else and use the authentication that comes with that. Then we collect the project data however you need it, we validate it, and use the Create Project API to start the project. We can then use the Project Patch API to add BIM 360 modules. We can use the Document Management API to create a custom folder tree and placeholder files. Finally, we can add users to the project, set their roles and their access levels. And since by this point we have a fully automated pipeline, we can also continue on and connect the project to other third-party systems. Thinking of other systems? Let's talk about Microsoft Teams. Teams has become one of the most popular ways to organize projects and to help teams communicate in both a synchronous and asynchronous fashion. We can use Forge to help deliver model data from BIM 360 to users who are working in Microsoft Teams. Now, a first step, again, begins with the Authentication API. By including BIM 360 authentication, we make sure that Teams users only have access to the files and models that they should in BIM 360, regardless of their MS Teams permissions. Alternatively, we could skip this step and control access to models entirely using the permissions within Teams. We can then use the Document Management API to pull in folder information and file information. We can use the Model Viewer to display files inside of Teams as if we were in BIM 360. And where we go from there is entirely up to us. Perhaps we, in addition to embedding tabs in Teams, we might pin a model so that it's be the first thing someone sees when they enter a channel. Or perhaps we want to create a multi-model viewer and display models and PDFs side by side and save our position so the next time we sign in we'll be brought right back to where we left off. Or we may use conversations in teams to discuss elements in the model. There's also no reason to limit ourselves to simply viewing models inside of teams. Any of the other tools we talked about today could be just as easily embedded in Microsoft Teams. Let's talk about search. BIM 360 has a solid project-based search capability. You can use it to find files you want and then, of course, modify them however you need. But depending on how you use BIM 360 and the data you want to get from your searches, you may want to extend your capabilities by using a third-party search. Autodesk's developer relation team developed what we call the Deep Contextual Search tool to let users expand their search from different projects to covering multiple hubs. We can also use it to not only search the files themselves, but using Forge's model derivative tools, we can extract data from inside of the models and search on that. For example, maybe we want to find every model in every project that calls out a specific brand of air handler. Using Forge and this search capability, we can do that. So, to get started, first, we get the folder contents in every folder. And at the same time, we may want to have webhooks so that any time in the future when these projects change or these files change, we can re-update it. Next, we use the Model Derivative API to pull information out of all of our models and files. This gives us the text in DWGs, the properties on families and Revit files, and more. And if we go beyond the built-in functionality, we can extend this even further to pull information out of PDFs, Word documents, and others that we've stored in BIM 360. Then we push all of this into a search service, such as Elasticsearch, a popular framework that can hold millions of records at a time. And then we search our files, similar to how we're using searching in Google or any other search engine. Now let's leave the front end, the user interaction stuff. And let's talk about automating actions that you and others at your company may be doing every day on every project. Things that are very important, but that don't really require a person to pay attention. They just need a system to do some task. And right now that means someone has to go in and press a button in Revit and then wait for 5, 10, or 60 minutes for it to complete, during which time that person is not able to get full use out of their machine. Several years ago, Autodesk Consulting helped develop a Revit performance analytics tool. The original version was run as a Revit plugin. You pressed a button, it analyzed your file, and pulled out information such as how many sheets you have, how many items, how large is the model, etc., quite a bit more. This information could then be pushed into a SQL database and analyzed in Power BI and other tools. It's overall quite amazing, and helps identify problems before they become too difficult to fix. The trouble is, that tool required someone to sit at their machine, press a button, and let it run for as long as it takes, which on some models can be quite a while. So we used Forge to improve the process. The plugin was rewritten to work as a Revit design automation app bundle, which runs Revit on Autodesk servers in the cloud away from your machines. Then, we use a webhook to detect a model being published from Design Collaboration. Then we run the Model Performance Analytics plugin on the model using Design Automation. And we export the results to a web-based SQL database. And then project managers get their data and analyze it in Power BI. It's fast, it's efficient, and it doesn't rely on people remembering to do one more thing or taking up cycles on their computer. Another type of task that can be moved off of your local machine and into the cloud is conversion of files from one type to another. Forge's model derivative service can convert files to and from over 60 different file formats. And most importantly in this case, it can convert Revit files to DWG and IFC formats. So if you have a workflow at your company that's heavily reliant on one of these two formats, with other applications consuming them to provide you with up-to-date, actionable information, you may be finding yourself spending a lot of time converting these massive Revit models from one format to another. To get around this, we use the Model Derivative API. And we make it so that the latest Revit file in BIM 360 document management always has an IFC file next to it. First, We use the Document Management API to get all the folders in a project, and we look in them for Revit files. We also add a webhook to the top-level folders to detect any new models that are added, or when an existing model changes. Next, we take all those Revit files, and we create conversion jobs. Then we set up another webhook, and we listen for those jobs to finish. And finally, once Forge has converted our models into IFC format, we put them back into document management, and they can be used like any other file. This next one leverages one of the best features of BIM 360, the fact that it doesn't delete anything. As long as your account is active, every file that's uploaded to BIM 360 is securely stored. And when you save a file, it creates a new version, but still keeps the old one. When you delete a file, it just hides it from view, but it doesn't actually go away. And because of this, if you need to go back in time and see what a file looked like 6 months ago, you can. But it can be a bit complicated. Folder structures can and do change over time, so the file might not be where you expect it. It may also reference other files, and it might take some time to figure out what's what. But using Forge, we can build a better solution. We can take point-in-time snapshots of an entire project without having to copy a single file. We just keep track of where the current version of the file was on a given day, and the folder structure around it, and we save those references. It's a couple of kilobytes of data instead of gigabytes of data, meaning that we can take these snapshots on a regular basis and easily see what our project looked like in the past. To do this, we start by using the Document Management API to get all the projects in a hub. We then use the Folder Contents API to walk through the project from top to bottom until we've mapped every folder and file. And finally, we put it all into a SQL database, where we can retrieve and view the files whenever we need. Of course, sometimes what you do need is actually not just the references to the files, but you want to make a full copy of your files in BIM 360 and put them somewhere else. BIM 360 is an incredibly reliable system, and it's built on the most robust cloud platform on the world. But there's still some extra comfort knowing that you have all of your files on your own servers or on your own cloud service. And so the snapshots have a secondary function, the ability to download every file in a project onto your own machine or your own cloud storage location on whatever schedule you want. And not only are you able to download the most recent version, you can use those snapshots to download the entire project as it was a year ago when the snapshot was taken. To accomplish this is actually my most straightforward slide. You take the tree from the previous slide, and you download each individual file. It can take a while, as you may have hundreds of thousands of files in your hub, but once it's done, you have your own permanent record of everything you've put into all of the files you put into BIM 360. Now, let's go back to the start. BIM 360 is an amazing tool with a lot of functionality, and it's a tool made for everyone, not just you. Forge lets you change that. When there's something you need, it lets you build that on top of your BIM 360 data and make exactly the solution that's right for you. Thank you again for your time today, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions about any of these projects or anything else, feel free to reach out to me. My email is daniel.clayson@autodesk.com, or you can reach the Forge team at forge.help@autodesk.com. Thank you very much.